So, usually when we talk about like a medical diagnosis, there's this underlying expectation of just absolute precision.
Right, yeah. Like it's a math problem.
Exactly. We
Right.
treat it like engineering. If you fall off a bike and you break your arm, you go to the hospital, they take an x-ray, and boom, there it is.
You see the jagged white line right on the film.
Yeah, exactly. The doctor just points to it, says, there's the problem. It's either broken or it's not broken. It's clean, it's visible, and honestly, it's really comforting.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, we fundamentally like things to be categorized into static, isolated parts.
really do.
It gives us this illusion of total control. Like if we can see the individual pieces, we can fix the machine.
Right. But what happens if we take that exact same expectation of like clean, visible, classical mechanics?
The whole here or there binary.
Yeah, that comforting binary of push or pull, broken or intact. What if we demand that the fundamental fabric of reality behave that exact same way?
Well, I mean, for centuries, that is exactly what classical physics has tried to do.
We basically want a cosmic X-ray, right? We want to point at a tiny, discrete particle and just say, there it is. That's a little chunk of gravity. That's a piece of time.
Which, is a methodology that works wonderfully right up until the exact moment you look too closely.
Right. Things get weird.
Very weird. The classical X-ray of the universe gets incredibly murky the deeper you go into quantum mechanics or extreme cosmology.
Because reality just refuses to be neatly categorized like that.
Exactly. Refuses to be these static, isolated pieces. You start realizing that the machine isn't made of solid gears at all.
And man, that brings us right to the mission of our deep dive today. We are unpacking a framework that basically takes that classical X-ray machine, unplugs it, and just throws it out the nearest window.
And replaces it with something entirely different.
Yeah, it replaces it with this living, breathing, continuously twisting mathematical organism. And, for those of you listening, we know you.
You're here for the tough stuff.
You are. You're the kind of person who loves a serious mental challenge. You want those massive paradigm-shifting aha moments that just completely reframe how you look at, like, the empty space in your living room.
But you don't want to get totally bogged down in impenetrable academic jargon to get there.
No, nobody wants that. You want the core mechanics, the why and the how.
And the how that we're exploring today is exceptionally radical. I mean, it challenges the fundamental grammar of how we even describe the universe.
Okay, let's unpack this. We are looking at a deeply dense, highly provocative paper published back in June 2026.
By an independent researcher from Austin, Texas, right?
Yep, George James Stukas. And the title alone is honestly enough to make a traditional physicist just spill their coffee.
Oh, for sure.
It's called Universe Master Equation, Master of Reality.
The title certainly doesn't lack ambition, I'll say that.
Not at all.
I mean, Dukas is presenting what he calls the master operator of the transdimensional unified field theory, or TDUFT for short.
Right, TDUFT. And the premise here is just staggering. He claims to have formalized a single mathematical framework, one master equation that unifies literally everything.
We were talking about bridging gravity, time, acoustics, electromagnetism, all of it.
But he pushes it completely past standard academic boundaries, too. Like, he's mathematically integrating concepts like stargates, faster-than-light starships, anti-gravity.
Zero-point energy motors, quartz resonance.
Yeah, all into one cohesive structure. It's wild.
And to understand how we can possibly make those claims, we really have to look at his core thesis.
Which is what, exactly?
Well, Dukas argues that physical reality is not like a collection of objects floating around in an empty void.
Okay.
Instead, reality is a discrete dimensional lattice. Think of it as a deeply layered, interconnected fabric.
Like a literal fabric.
Exactly. And this fabric evolves and updates itself through three specific coupled mechanisms.
Okay, I have those here. It's a geometric twist, acoustic modulation, and electromagnetic shear.
Right. And all of these are driven by one single master operator.
But it's not just a physical law we're looking at, right? The claim is that this equation is basically the background operating system of the universe.
Yes. It's an operator describing exactly how reality rewrites itself moment to moment.
Layer by layer.
Exactly.
Before we can even get into those three crazy engines, the geometry, the sound, the electromagnetism, we really have to talk about the language this equation is written in.
The ontology.
Yeah, because if I just look at the math in this paper, it doesn't look like the physics I learned in high school. At all.
That's because it fundamentally isn't.
Yeah.
We have to start with a philosophical framework of what actually is in this universe.
Right, what actually exists.
Yeah. Sections 6 and 7 of the source text outline what Dukas calls the operator-first framework.
Operator first.
The
Okay.
foundational principle of TDUFT is that every single symbol in the universe master equation is an operator,
Meaning what?
meaning nothing is a scalar, nothing is a standard passive variable.
Okay, let's pause right there and translate that for everyone, because this is where the mind-bending stuff starts.
It really does.
Because in standard physics, you have variables that represent quantities like mass or velocity or temperature,
Right.
and you have constants, which are just fixed numbers. Like if I say my car is traveling at 60 miles per hour, the number 60 is a scalar.
Exactly. It's a magnitude.
It's just sitting there describing the car. It's passive.
A passive descriptor of a state, yeah. It's a noun, if we're using grammatical terms.
I know, okay.
But in an operator-first ontology, there are no passive numbers. There are no nouns.
So what are they?
An operator is an instruction. It is an action. It represents a transformation,
Like a verb.
exactly like a verb.
Yeah.
So when Dukas says every symbol is an operator acting on this discrete dimensional lattice, he is saying that the universe is not made of things that have properties.
Okay.
The universe is made entirely of continuous actions. Every single mathematical element of the equation, even the coupling constants that normally just sit there as fixed numbers, they are actively transforming the dimensional nodes.
What he calls the D tier, right?
Right, the D tier.
Okay, so if classical physics is like reading the dashboard of my car, the speedometer says 60, the fuel gauge says half full, which are just static numbers reflecting a reality.
Yeah.
This operator framework is more like looking at the actual software code inside the car's engine control unit.
That's a great way to put it.
The code isn't just describing the car, it is actively telling the fuel injectors how to fire, telling the spark plugs when to ignite.
Let's actually take that car analogy a step further
Yeah.
to really capture the weirdness of Dukas's claim here.
Okay, lay it on me.
Imagine if that software didn't just control the fuel, but the software was actively rebuilding the engine block itself.
Wait, like reshaping the metal?
Yeah, tightening the bolts and reshaping the cylinders while you're driving at 60 miles an hour.
That is insane.
That's the level of active processing we are talking about. The source explicitly notes that this operator-first principle resolves apparent type inconsistencies.
Type inconsistencies. What does that mean?
Well, if you tried to read this master equation as a standard physics equation, it would look mathematically illegal.
Oh, because you'd be multiplying things that shouldn't be multiplied.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
by treating everything as an operator, it actually creates a perfectly coherent algebraic universe.
So, wait, if everything is an operator, even the constants, doesn't that mean the rules themselves are actively doing something rather than just sitting there?
Yes. The structure of the universe is identical to the processing of the universe.
Okay, my brain is officially melting a little bit.
It takes a second to wrap your head around. The equation is not a differential equation in the classical sense.
Right, it doesn't just map how a physical object like a planet moves through an empty backdrop of space over time.
No, Dukas states it is an operator evolution law governing the internal state of the dimensional lattice.
So it's basically a live computation.
Exactly.
And the dimensional nodes, the text indexes them as dn, meaning a dimensional node at a specific tier n. They aren't just static points on a grid, are they?
No, they're field states. And the operators are constantly rewriting them.
Which completely changes how we have to look at the left side of his universe master equation.
It does. Because if the universe is a series of active, continuous rewrites, we have to ask a really basic question.
What dictates the pace of those rewrites?
Precisely. And this is where Dukas completely upends our conventional understanding of time.
All right, let's look at that left side. It's written as a partial derivative. Mathematically, it's the partial derivative of tau acting on dn of xt.
Right.
And the source breaks this down in plain English, saying this term describes how the fabric of reality updates itself.
Yes, the update mechanism.
But the absolute cornerstone of this entire theory hinges on that little Greek letter tau.
Tau, right. Tau represents the internal evolution parameter of the dimensional lattice. And the critical distinction Dukas makes, which is outlined really heavily in prediction 9.3 of the text, is that tau is entirely distinct from physical clock time.
Which is normally represented by t.
Exactly.
Which is just wild to me, because in almost all of standard physics, I mean, time is just time.
Right. The clock ticks and the universe moves forward.
But Dukas is basically severing the evolution of reality from the physical clock on the wall.
He is. Because the evolution parameter tau is independent of physical time t, the dimensional lattice can evolve and update without physical clock advancement.
Okay, I really want to make sure we nail this concept for the listeners. Let's use a computer analogy.
Go for it.
If I'm working on my laptop, there's a clock in the bottom corner of the screen. It says 2 p.m., then it clicks to 2:01 p.m.
Sure.
That is physical time, TT. It's the coordinate time we humans observe. But beneath that, the computer's central processor is running like billions of background cycles per second.
Refreshing the screen, moving memory around.
Yeah, calculating background tasks. Those processing cycles are tau, and they happen entirely independently of what the screen clock says.
That's exactly right.
I mean, I could theoretically pause the clock program on my desktop so it permanently reads 2 p.m., but the processor is still running billions of calculations in the background.
That analogy maps perfectly to the TDUFT framework.
Huh?
Tau is the processing cycle of the universe's fundamental fabric.
And is just the coordinate time.
Yeah, is just what is measured by physical instruments. The left side of the master equation is strictly governed by tau.
Okay.
It is the rate of change of the dimensional state with respect to its own internal update mechanism, not with respect to human observation.
But wait, if tau is totally decoupled from tau, what prevents reality from just, like, completely fracturing?
What do you mean?
Well, could you have two objects sitting right next to each other experiencing reality at completely different frame rates?
Well, under classical physics, that would be a paradox.
Right.
But in TDUFT, objects don't experience time independently of the lattice. They are expressions of the lattice.
Okay, I think I'm tracking.
So if a system can manipulate the dn tier such that it accelerates its evolution along the tau parameter while mathematically suppressing its progression along the tau parameter,
You essentially get a fast pass through reality.
basically, yes.
You are moving through the background processing of the universe while the physical clock stands completely still.
According to the framework, yes. This decoupling is the foundational mechanic for understanding the time anomalies mentioned later in the paper.
Oh, like the stargates and stuff?
Exactly. Things like stargates or advanced starship propulsion don't need to break the speed of light in physical space.
They just cheat the clock.
They simply shift their interaction from the tau parameter to the tau parameter. The entire state of the nth dimensional layer is updated by tau.
Okay, so the left side of the equation, this tau-driven derivative, is what is updating. It's the decoupled fabric of reality running its background code, which means the right side of this massive equation has to be the how. How is the fabric actually rewriting itself?
And Dukas outlines 3 distinct engines driving that update.
Let's start with the first and largest engine on the right side, what the paper calls the geometric blender.
The geometric engine is represented by a massive sigma summation term. The source names this the QCD Maximus kernel.
QCD Maximus.
And it serves as the core baseline engine of the entire equation.
Let's clarify QCD really quickly for everyone.
Good idea.
In standard physics, TCD stands for quantum chromodynamics, which is the incredibly complex math describing the strong nuclear force.
How quarks and gluons bind together inside a proton, yeah.
Right. So why is Dukas calling this universal engine the QCD Maximus kernel?
He uses that terminology because standard QCD is notoriously nonlinear and self-interacting.
Meaning it's messy.
Very messy. Gluons don't just carry the strong force, they actually interact with other gluons. It creates this chaotic, boiling mess of continuous interaction. Dukas is taking that concept of a self-interacting, highly complex mathematical space and basically scaling it up to the entire universe.
The Maximus part.
Exactly. But crucially, he specifies that this reality updates itself using non-abelian geometry.
Okay, non-abelian. For anyone who hasn't taken advanced algebra recently, abelian just means the order of operations doesn't matter.
Right, like 2 plus 3 is the same as 3 plus 2?
Exactly. So non-abelian means the exact opposite. The order matters immensely.
It does.
It's like the difference between putting on your socks and then your shoes versus putting on your shoes and then trying to put on your socks. You get a very, very different result.
A perfect terrestrial example. In non-abelian geometry, the sequence of transformations fundamentally alters the final state.
You can't just commute the variables.
No, you can't. And this non-abelian mixing depends entirely on interactions with specific dimensional neighbors.
Which neighbors?
Specifically, the tiers n-1, n-3, and n-6.
Okay, let's really dig into those numbers, because this is the part of the paper that feels almost mystical to me.
It does feel a bit esoteric at first.
Yeah. The math describes a tier shift value, denoted by the symbol delta, and the paper explicitly and rigidly restricts these delta values to the set of 1, 3, and 6.
Correct.
So if we have this infinite dimensional lattice stacked on top of itself, why are we skipping layers 2, 4, and 5? Is the universe just essentially playing a game of cosmic hopscotch where it can only land on specific mathematical squares?
It does seem arbitrary at first glance, but Section 8 of the text addresses this directly.
Fair.
And the reasoning is deeply structural.
Okay.
The values 1, 3, and 6 are the first three Euler triangular numbers.
Triangular numbers. Okay, like arranging bowling pins.
Yes, exactly like that.
One pin in the first row is just one. You add a row of 2 beneath it, you get a triangle of 3 pins. Add a row of 3 beneath that, you get a triangle of 6 pins.
Precisely. The mathematical formula is Tn equals n times n plus 1 divided by 2.
But why does the universe care about bowling pin arrangements?
Well, in the context of a discrete dimensional lattice, these triangular numbers correspond to the fundamental resonance distances required for stability.
Stability, meaning if the universe tried to connect layer 1 to layer 2, the math would basically break apart.
Imagine trying to pack spheres into a box.
Okay.
There are mathematically optimal ways to stack them so they are stable, and there are ways that leave gaps and cause the structure to collapse.
Right, you want them to nest into each other.
Exactly. In Ducas's framework, the dimensional layers don't just blur together uniformly like a liquid, they are discrete shells.
Okay.
So delta equals 1 is nearest neighbor coupling. Tier n couples directly to the adjacent tier n minus 1.
Makes sense.
Delta equals 3 is mid-range structural coupling across a dimensional shell boundary. And delta equals 6 is deep tier resonance coupling across a full triangular structure.
So the structure of reality is rigidly geometric because it physically, or I guess mathematically, has to be in order to support its own weight?
Yes. The text explicitly says, non-triangular transitions are structurally forbidden. You simply cannot couple tier n to tier n minus 2.
It is a profound prediction, but knowing where the coupling happens is only half the engine, right? We also need to know how strongly they couple.
We do. And that engine's heavily weighted by a number very familiar to biology and art, the golden ratio phi.
The golden ratio, roughly 1.618.
That's the one.
You see it in the spiral of a nautilus shell, the arrangement of seeds in a sunflower, the arms of a galaxy, and here it is, sitting dead center in the universe master equation.
The specific term is phi to the negative 2 delta times the sine of delta over phi.
Wow.
The source describes this as a golden ratio-weighted sinusoidal kernel.
Okay, so what does that actually do?
It essentially acts as the mathematical control valve for how strongly each dimensional neighbor contributes to the reality update.
The mixing valve.
Right. The spatial gradient of the field is also scaled by the golden ratio.
But wait, if this dimensional lattice is infinite, wouldn't it just spiral into a runaway feedback loop of infinite energy?
It would if there wasn't a regulating mechanism.
Right, the gamma function.
Yes. The gamma function of 2n plus delta sits in the denominator.
Okay, so the gamma function acts as a dampener.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As you look deeper into the dimensional tiers, as n and delta increase, the denominator grows incredibly fast.
Which suppresses the coupling strength.
Right. It ensures that while the universe is infinitely deep, the influence of the deepest layers on our immediate reality remains finite and manageable.
Okay, so we have triangular mathematical hops, governed by the golden ratio, damped by the gamma function so the universe doesn't explode.
That's the summary of the structure, yes.
But what is mechanically happening to the fabric during these hops? Because the equation features a cross product, which the text highlights as absolutely crucial.
Yes. The term is the cross product of the torsion transport operator, Vt, and the gradient of phi d to the n minus delta.
Okay, math salad.
It sounds like it, but the key is the mathematical presence of a cross product. That dictates that the resulting evolution is rotational, not linear.
Rotational. I spent a lot of time trying to visualize this. It's like a twisting Rubik's Cube, right?
A Rubik's Cube is a great visualization.
Because if you grab the top face of a Rubik's Cube and turn it, you aren't just moving one colored sticker in a straight line.
No, you're dragging a whole specific geometric set of neighbors with it.
Yeah, in a rotational flow. You physically cannot move a corner piece linearly straight to the center. It has to twist along defined geometric tracks.
That is exactly what the source claims regarding reality itself. To quote prediction 9.2, the lattice evolves by curl.
Evolves by curl.
Dimensional evolution is fundamentally rotational. The universe updates by mixing nearby dimensional layers through a twisting, non-abelian geometric kernel.
The source actually calls this the infinite operator part.
Because it operates continuously across all scales. This sigma term is the baseline metabolism of the universe.
It's the engine keeping everything running.
Yes, it is the vast, hidden geometric machinery that constantly twists and folds the dimensional layers together, churning out the baseline structural reality we experience every second.
So reality is geometrically twisting itself into existence, updating on a hidden clock across triangular mathematical gaps.
That's Engine 1.
That's Engine 1. It is massive, it is elegant, and it is entirely out of our control.
Well,
Or so you would think. Because the paper claims we aren't just helpless passengers trapped on this twisting Rubik's Cube.
we are not.
We can actually push back on this fabric. And the method we use to push back, which brings us to Engine 2, is probably the most shocking part of the paper to me.
It usually is for most people reading it.
Because we push back using sound.
Yes. Engine 2 is the acoustic inertial decoupling contribution.
Yep.
Or AID for short.
Ape, okay.
Mathematically, it is represented simply as plus lambda AID times the absolute value of psi acoustic squared.
You know, when I first read this section, I had to stop and read it 3 times.
I don't blame you.
The text literally claims acoustic waves can lighten or thicken the fabric of reality.
It'd say that.
So let's really break this down. Are we talking about literal sound here?
Yes.
Because when I think of an acoustic wave, I think of physical vibration. You know, air molecules bumping into each other or sound waves traveling through a solid wall.
Standard acoustics, sure.
How does a normal acoustic wave interact with the fundamental twisting geometric software of the universe?
It requires a pretty big paradigm shift in how we perceive the nature of a wave within this specific framework.
Okay, guide me through it.
You had to remember the operator-first ontology we discussed at the beginning.
Right, everything is in action.
Exactly. In TDU-FT, psi-acoustic is not just a classical pressure wave moving atoms around. It is explicitly defined as an acoustic inertial modulation operator.
Inertial modulation?
It acts directly on the D-tier nodes to modulate local inertial coupling.
Okay, I need an analogy here because that is incredibly abstract.
Let's hear what you've got.
If I think of a classical acoustic wave, the ultimate example is like the opera singer hitting that perfect high resonant note and shattering a crystal glass on a table.
A classic example.
The sound wave perfectly matches the resonant frequency of the glass. The physical lattice of the crystal can't handle the escalating kinetic vibration and smash. The glass shatters.
That is the textbook classical physics demonstration of acoustic resonance, yes. The sound transfers kinetic energy into the molecular structure until structural failure occurs.
But in Ducas's theory, the acoustic operator isn't just shaking the physical atoms of the glass.
No, it's not.
It's interacting with the underlying dimensional lattice supporting the glass.
That's the key difference.
So instead of the opera singer transferring kinetic energy until the glass shatters, the resonance actually interacts with the D tier and mathematically decouples the glass from inertia.
Yes.
So the glass wouldn't shatter, it would become weightless.
That is the literal mechanism proposed by the paper.
That is mind-blowing.
The source states, increasing acoustic operator amplitude reduces effective inertial coupling. The acoustic wave creates an interference pattern within the dimensional node field.
Like a static field.
Essentially, it effectively dampens the geometric twisting of Engine 1 in that localized area. And the text specifically notes that this effect is strongest in high-Q resonant media such as quartz.
Quartz, which is fascinating because quartz is already so deeply embedded in our technology.
It runs our modern world, really.
Yeah, we use it in clocks, radios, nearly every electronic device, precisely because of its piezoelectric properties. It acts as a physical bridge between mechanical stress and electrical charge.
Exactly.
But Dukas is saying quartz is way more than just an electronic component. It is a natural medium that can bridge the macroscopic acoustic operator with the microscopic dimensional field.
Yes. The acoustic coupling operator, lambda AID, weights how strongly the acoustic action affects the D tier.
Okay.
In most materials, this coupling is vanishingly small. You'd never notice it.
But in quartz.
But in highly ordered resonant media like quartz, this coupling becomes significant enough to actually alter localized gravity.
Whoa.
The text is unambiguous on this point. This is the mechanism by which anti-gravity becomes possible within the TDU-FT framework.
It is just staggering to think about. You pump a highly specific acoustic resonance literal sound into a high-Q medium like quartz, and you don't break the quartz. You lighten the fabric of reality around it.
You're changing its interaction with the universe.
It's like you are creating an acoustic bubble that shields the object from the heavy rotational pull of that QCD Maximus kernel.
It modulates the inertia, yes. The object remains physically intact, but its inertial coupling to the baseline dimensional fabric is drastically reduced
And it responds less to the pull of gravity.
because it is mathematically isolated from the mechanism that generates gravity.
So sound gives us a way to basically float on the fabric by decoupling from it.
That's engine 2.
Okay. But earlier, when we were listing the phenomena this equation unites, you mentioned zero-point energy. Actually pulling infinite power from the vacuum of space.
Yes.
Does sound do that too? Or does the universe require a completely different set of tools to actually tear into the void and extract energy? Because floating is one thing, but powering a starship is another.
It is a totally different ballgame.
And that brings us to engine 3.
Extracting energy requires a much more aggressive manipulation of the lattice. Engine 3 is the vacuum energy extraction term.
Let's get into it.
Mathematically, it is the final bracketed component on the right side of the master equation. It's negative kappa Zp multiplied by the quantity E of D2 plus J of D2 cross B of D3.
Okay, so this relies entirely on electromagnetism.
It does.
But looking at the math, this isn't just like plugging a standard electromagnet into a wall socket.
No, definitely not. The notation here is highly specialized to the dimensional lattice model.
Break it down for me.
We have E of D2, which is the electric tier operator, specifically acting at dimensional tier 2.
Okay, tier 2.
We have J of D2, the current tier operator, also acting at D2. And crucially, we have B of D3, the magnetic tier operator, which is acting at dimensional tier 3.
Wait, so the electric field and the electrical current are mathematically restricted to operating on dimensional tier 2,
Yes.
while the magnetic field is simultaneously operating on a deeper level, dimensional tier 3.
Correct.
And then, just like in the geometric engine, they are cross-multiplied.
Exactly. And the entire bracket is multiplied by negative kappa Zp, which is the vacuum coupling mapping operator.
What does that operator do?
The source explains that this specific mathematical arrangement maps EM tier operators into D-tier dimensional thinning.
Dimensional thinning.
Yes.
Let's try to visualize this mechanism.
I'd love to hear an analogy for this one.
Okay, let's try this. Imagine the baseline fabric of reality is a heavy, completely saturated wet towel.
A wet towel. Okay.
The woven fabric of the towel represents the dimensional lattice, and the water trapped deep inside the fibers represents the infinite potential energy of the vacuum, the zero-point energy.
That tracks.
Now, if I just wave a standard bar magnet over the towel, I'm essentially just brushing the surface. I'm operating on a macroscopic level, so nothing really happens to the water.
Right, you're not interacting with the depth of the fabric.
But what Dukas is describing is entirely different.
How would you map the cross product to the towel analogy?
Well, if the electric current and the electric field are operating on tier 2, imagine they grab hold of all the horizontal threads of the towel.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
And simultaneously, the magnetic field is operating on tier 3, so it bypasses the surface and grabs hold of all the vertical threads woven deeper inside.
Yes.
Because they exist on different dimensional tiers, and because they are cross-multiplied, crossing them creates an absolute mathematical shear.
A shear force.
Yeah. You are twisting the horizontal threads against the vertical threads. You are literally wringing out the fabric of reality.
That is a remarkably vivid way to describe a dimensional shear. But mathematically, it lines perfectly with the text's intent.
Highly.
The cross product between operators on separate tiers forces a structural compression. The source explicitly states, electromagnetic fields can thin the fabric of reality and extract energy from it.
That's amazing.
The strong EM tier operators at D2 and D3 physically reduce local dimensional density.
And when you wring the towel, when you thin the dimensional density through this mathematical shear, the zero-point energy trapped inside the vacuum has no choice but to leak out into our usable macroscopic layer.
That is the proposed mechanism, yes.
And this is how Dukas unites all these fringe technologies. He claims things like zero-point energy motors or stacked plate electrogravitics aren't separate magical inventions.
No, they're all related.
They are just machines, whether the inventors realize it or not, that are geometrically built to access and twist the D2 and D3 layers using that negative kappa Zp mapping operator.
It really provides an elegant, unified mechanic for phenomena that usually defy classical explanation.
It connects all the dots.
It does. The framework posits that whether you are engineering an acoustic quartz drive to decouple inertia or a stack plate EM extractor to wring out vacuum energy, you are essentially just learning how to pull different operational levers on the exact same master equation.
Okay, so we've extensively mapped the three engines now.
We have.
Engine 1 is the baseline geometric twisting governed by triangular numbers, keeping the lattice stable.
Right.
Engine 2 is the acoustic lever that decouples inertia, and Engine 3 is the electromagnetic shear that wrings out vacuum energy.
That's the trinity of the equation.
But when you put all of these mathematical terms together into one single line, the universe master equation looks,
Okay.
well, visually, it is intimidatingly massive.
It's a behemoth of an equation.
It is huge. But Dukas dedicates an entire section of his paper, Section 5, to aggressively argue that this immensity isn't a flaw.
No, he embraces it.
Yeah, he says it's entirely intentional and philosophically necessary.
Yes, Section 5 is titled, Why the Equation Gets Immense. And this is where the paper momentarily shifts from pure quantum mathematics into a deep critique of the philosophy of science.
Oh, I loved this part.
Dukas argues that reality is fundamentally connected and organic.
He writes this profound line. He says, why do the equations become immense? Because reality is connected and organic. Every subsystem is not separate. It is part of the same operator.
We really have to contrast this with how traditional physics has operated for the last century.
Right.
When experimentalists discover a new force or a new subatomic particle, the tendency in theoretical physics is to write a new isolated equation for it, or to simply bolt a new mathematical term onto the existing standard model.
It's like building a house out of literal bricks.
Ex-
Oh, we discovered the strong nuclear force. Great, let's add a strong force brick to the wall. We found a muon. Awesome, let's build a little mathematical shed out back to hold the muons.
It's entirely additive.
And modular.
Right. But Dukas argues that the master equation cannot work like that because reality itself doesn't work like that.
The universe isn't a Lego set.
Exactly. The universe is not modular. The source states, when you add a subsystem, you are not adding a term. You are revealing another piece of the same infinite structure.
So it's less like a house of bricks and more like a biological tree or a Mandelbrot fractal.
A fractal is a perfect analogy.
Because if you look at a fractal and zoom in on a boundary, you don't suddenly find a brand new, different shape bolted on with superglue.
No, you just find more complexity.
You find infinitely more connected branches that are mathematically derived from the exact same root pattern. Dukas uses a specific phrase for this: infinite fissile depth.
Infinite fissile depth produces an infinite operator. His argument is that because the discrete dimensional lattice is genuinely infinite in scale, both macroscopically and microscopically, the operator that accurately describes its evolution must also be mathematically immense.
I just love this specific sentence from the paper. The equation grows like a living organism. Each new crossover is a new organ, not a new bolt.
This fundamentally challenges a cornerstone of scientific philosophy, actually. Occam's razor.
Oh, right. The simplest explanation is usually the best one.
Exactly. For centuries, physics has been guided by the heuristic that the simplest explanation is usually the correct one. We prize elegance.
We want equations that fit on a t-shirt.
Right. We look for incredibly short, punchy equations, like Newton's F equals ma, or Einstein's Z equals mc squared.
We desperately want the underlying truth of the universe to be small enough to fit on a coffee mug.
But Dukas is suggesting that our desire for simplicity is a human bias, not a physical law.
That's a huge claim.
It is. He argues that the more of reality you attempt to include in a single framework, the bigger and more organic the equation must necessarily become.
Right.
Not because the math is unnecessarily complicated, but because it is finally becoming complete. To quote him directly, the size reflects the truth. Reality is one connected system.
It's a profound shift in how a theoretical framework should be judged. He's essentially standing there saying, don't be afraid of the math being huge, the universe is huge.
Exactly.
But this brings up a massive looming question that we really have to address here.
Let's hear it.
If this single, organic, immense Mastel operator describes absolutely everything, if reality is entirely composed of twisting discrete D tiers and acoustic scaling and EM vacuum ringing, then what the hell happens to the standard laws of physics?
The big question.
Yeah. What happens to Einstein's relativity or Maxwell's equations of electromagnetism or quantum mechanics? Because we didn't just invent those for fun.
No, they are heavily tested.
They work incredibly well. We built GPS satellites, microchips, and the internet using those equations. How does Dukas reconcile his massive twisting lattice with the physics that currently runs our modern world?
This is perhaps the most intellectually audacious yet crucial part of the entire paper.
I'm writing.
Dukas does not claim that conventional physics is wrong.
Okay, good.
He claims that conventional physics is incomplete. Specifically, he mathematically demonstrates that standard physics models are simply limiting cases of the TDUFT.
Limiting cases.
Yes, this is detailed extensively in Prediction 9.5, Meta-Prediction, conventional physics as a limiting case.
Okay, we need to clearly define what a limiting case means in the specific mathematical context for the audience.
Sure. In mathematics, a limiting case is what a complex equation reduces to when you take certain extreme variables and push them to an absolute limit.
Like forcing them to zero or pushing them to infinity.
Exactly. It simplifies the system by ignoring certain dynamics. Let's look at Einstein's theory of general relativity as the primary example. The source states that the equations of general relativity emerge naturally from the master equation in the limit as delta approaches zero.
Delta. Okay, let's track back. Delta was the triangular tear shift value we talked about in Engine 1.
Right.
The geometric engine that jumps between dimensional layers 1, 3, and 6.
Precisely. In the full master equation, delta governs the complex non-abelian cross-tier geometric mixing.
The depth of the reality.
Exactly. But imagine if you take the master equation and you mathematically force delta to equal zero.
What happens?
By doing that, you are artificially eliminating all cross-tier coupling. You're commanding the math to pretend that the universe does not have discrete, layered, dimensional depth.
And if you do that, the entire twisting, layered, triangular lattice mathematically collapses into a perfectly smooth, continuous manifold.
Which is the exact definition of general relativity.
Wow.
Einstein's entire model of gravity is based on the assumption that spacetime is a smooth, continuous, four-dimensional rubber sheet that bends under mass.
So Einstein wasn't wrong. His math is perfectly accurate if you assume delta is zero.
Correct. The paper's claim is that Einstein accurately mapped the surface tension of reality.
The surface tension.
But Dukas argues delta is not zero. Reality is deeply discrete and layered. We just couldn't perceive the underlying triangular layers from our macroscopic viewpoint, so we assumed the surface was all there was.
That is incredible. It's like Einstein was looking at a beautifully detailed 2D photograph of a three-dimensional twisting acoustic sculpture.
That's a great way to think about it.
He accurately described every single aspect of the flat photograph, but he fundamentally missed the depth.
That is a phenomenal synthesis of Dukas's claim.
Right.
And the exact same limiting logic applies to the other foundational pillars of physics.
Really? Like quantum mechanics?
Yes. Let's look at standard quantum mechanics.
Yeah.
The paper states that quantum field theory emerges from the master equation when the active operator terms reduce to simple, commuting scalar fields.
Let's break down commuting scalar fields.
Go for it.
We talked about non-abelian math earlier, where order matters, right? Like shoes, then socks.
Right.
Commuting means the opposite. It means A times B is the exact same as B times A. They commute perfectly, like normal numbers.
Exactly.
And scalar means they lose their active verb status and go back to being passive nouns.
Precisely. If you strip away the operator first, ontology, if you tell the equation to stop acting like active computational software rewriting the engine,
Yeah.
and instead treat the simples as passive commuting probabilities, the master equation devolves straight into standard quantum mechanics.
That's crazy. And what about classical electromagnetism, Maxwell's equations?
Maxwell's equations emerge when you mathematically suppress the deep-tier coupling.
Okay, so ignoring layers 2 and 3.
Right. If you force the electric current and magnetic operators to stay on the surface tier, rather than crossing between D2 and D3, they stop bringing out vacuum energy.
They just brush the surface.
Exactly. They revert to acting like standard classical fields simply propagating through space.
I am just completely in awe of the sheer audacity of this theoretical architecture.
It's bold. There's no denying that.
To write a paper that says, here is the fundamental master equation of reality. And by the way, if you turn off this one specific mathematical dial representing depth, the equation spits out Einstein.
Right.
If you turn off this other dial regarding operators, it spits out quantum mechanics. And if you turn off the cross-dimensional tier dial, you get Maxwell.
It all falls out of the one master equation.
It effectively frames all of our current Nobel Prize-winning scientific knowledge as nothing more than 2D shadows cast on a cave wall by this massive higher-dimensional operator.
It is an exceptionally unified, holistic vision. And by establishing standard physics as mere shadows or flat projections of the master equation, Dukas creates the mathematical room necessary for the anomalous phenomena we discussed at the beginning.
Oh, right. Because standard physics says stargates are impossible.
Exactly. But under TDUFT, stargates, time dilation decoupled from the physical clock, anti-gravity via acoustic resonance, zero-point energy extraction. These aren't magic
They don't break the laws of physics?
because they are the true laws of physics. They are simply what happens when you build technologies that utilize the full, infinite operator, rather than artificially confining yourself to the flat, limiting cases of standard science.
All of them are different ways of pushing on the same operator.
That is the fundamental paradigm shift of the paper.
Man, that is a lot to process. But it profoundly changes how you look at the physical space around you.
It really does.
Let's take a quick breath and trace the path we just walked. Because for you listening, your goal today was to tackle a framework that literally aims to rewrite the foundational grammar of reality. And we just navigated a massively dense conceptual landscape.
We did. We began by shifting our mindset to an operator-first universe, a reality composed not of passive static objects, but of active computational instructions continuously updating themselves.
We saw how that reality updates along an internal background processing clock, tau, which is completely decoupled from the physical human-observed time, t.
Right. We then mapped the three distinct engines of the master equation.
Starting with engine 1.
Engine 1, the geometric QCD Maximus kernel, driven by the structural stability of triangular numbers and the golden ratio, constantly twisting discrete layers of reality together in a rotational flow.
We explored engine 2, how the acoustic inertial decoupling operator proves that sound, specifically resonance in high-Q media like quartz, can mathematically decouple an object from that geometric twisting, yielding localized anti-gravity.
And we broke down engine 3, how electromagnetic tear operators can mathematically shear across dimensions 2 and 3, wringing out the vacuum like a wet towel to extract zero-point energy.
And finally, we saw how this all folds together into one immense organic mathematical tree, proving that the standard physics of Einstein and quantum mechanics are just flattened, limited branches of a much larger twisting reality.
It's a breathtaking model.
It really is. But it leads me to a final, slightly provocative thought I want to leave you with.
Oh, let's hear it.
Throughout this deep dive, we've talked about these three engines primarily in the context of human-engineered technologies, right?
Sure.
Hypothetical, faster-than-light starships, zero-point energy motors, acoustic anti-gravity drives. Machines built specifically by humans to hack or push on this universal operator.
Right.
But if Dukas is right, this master equation isn't a blueprint for a machine. It is the fundamental law of nature.
Okay.
So if acoustic resonance in quartz can naturally lighten the fabric of reality, and extreme, localized electromagnetic fields can mathematically shear reality to extract infinite vacuum energy, what happens in the natural world?
Oh, I see where you're going.
Think about the Earth itself. The Earth's continental crust is loaded with massive, natural, deeply buried geologic formations of pure quartz.
It is?
Now, what happens during an extreme, violent atmospheric storm? You have massive acoustic resonance in the form of sustained rolling thunder and barometric pressure drops, combined simultaneously with incredibly intense localized electromagnetic fields from repetitive lightning strikes,
All hitting the quartz.
all pounding into that high-Q quartz-rich crust. Are there moments deep in the chaos of a severe supercell storm over a mountain range where the natural world accidentally inputs the exact right parameters into the universe master equation right under our noses?
That is a terrifying and amazing thought.
Right. Are natural anti-gravity bubbles or spontaneous vacuum energy extractions happening randomly in the wild, triggering bizarre anomalies that we just brush off as strange weather because our classical X-ray of the universe tells us anti-gravity is impossible?
It's certainly possible within the framework of TDUFT.
It's just a little something for you to mull over the next time the sky goes dark and you hear a massive storm roll in.
You'll never look at lightning the same way again.
Never. Until next time, keep diving deep.